Hello and welcome to what I am calling a show-verview. I asked on Instagram for suggestions of videos that you would like to see, and someone asked for an overview of all the shows that I have been in, how I found them, how I felt at the time of performing in those shows, memories that I have, a general overview of every show that I have been in, aka a show-verview. So travel back with me, if you will, to the year of 2013. 9 years ago. 9 years ago. It has almost been an entire decade since I played Eponine for the first time at what was then the Queen's Theatre. It is now the Sondheim Theatre. The theatre's been renamed since I played Eponine. That's how long ago it was. My memories of Les Mis right at the beginning, before I'd been given the part, was just how impossible it was going to be to get this part. Prior to my audition for Eponine, I had auditioned for Mamma Mia. It remains to this day one of my worst auditions that I have ever done. It was terrible. I was terrible. I was nervous. So I turned up to this audition where everyone is dressed for a holiday in Greece, and I was dressed very much like 20-year-old me. I was dressed in my yellow Doc Martens that had happy faces painted on the front of them, a black dress that had like little white X's all over it, and green tights. Wasn't my best move. And I came out of that audition thinking, I'm not cut out for this industry. Maybe I've made a massive mistake. And I called up my new agent who was already taking a massive risk on me because I had no experience as an adult. I hadn't been to drama school. They were literally going off of an audition that I had done on their behalf. I'd gone in for a meeting for them and they'd been like, we think you'd make a good presenter. And I was like, don't really want to be a presenter though. And they were like, we'll keep you on file, which is like code for no. And then a few months later, at this point, they had no musical theatre department. They had like TV, film, voiceovers, presenting. They didn't have a musical theatre department. So when an audition came in for a musical movie, which I think was Walking on Sunshine, they called me up and they were like, hey, we are now assembling a musical theatre department and we remembered you, and we've got this musical movie that we would like you to audition for on behalf of us. Like, we will represent you for this one audition, and based on the feedback, based on like how prepared you are, how well you do in the audition, based on the feedback from that audition, we will reconsider. And I didn't get the part, but clearly the feedback was good enough for them to go, okay, we'll take a shot. So when I called up my agent after this Mamma Mia audition being like, oh God, that did not go well, and I didn't even make it to the dance rounds. But my agent at the time was like, don't worry about it. If this next audition goes terribly and you really have changed your mind, then we'll talk about that then. But the next audition is for Les Mis. It's the one you've been waiting for. We know how much you want to play Eponine. So we've got you an audition for Eponine next week. Let's just see how that goes. Based on how the audition for Mamma Mia had gone, I was like, look, if that's how this is gonna go down, I don't stand a chance in hell. I don't think this is gonna go very well at all. So any hope that I had of actually playing the role, I had just snuffed it out and gone, do you know what? It's just good to be seen. It's just amazing that I've even gotten into this room in the first place. So let's just take it one step at a time. And my audition process for Les Mis was pretty much a standard process of auditioning for shows. I've been through weirder processes than that and much longer processes than that. I've been through much quicker and much more like snappy, tight deadline, we need to find someone for this part by tomorrow type processes. Les Mis was pretty much a very bog standard audition process, mainly because by that point the show was 27 years old. So they knew what they were doing. It was a well-oiled machine. So I went into my first audition around February or March of 2013. When you're auditioning for a part as opposed to auditioning, sometimes you audition generally, you're just auditioning to be in the show, and then later on down the line they'll be like, we think you look like this part, we think you'd suit this song, we think you'd be a great first cover this, or playing that part, or you'd be a great swing. You have more freedom to choose what you sing. They just say, bring a song in this style, bring a song, a soprano song, bring a contemporary song, bring a legit song. And you can just pick a song or a couple of songs from the musical theatre back catalogue. But in this case, I was specifically auditioning for Eponine, so I had Eponine material. You're given what is called material that is actually from the show. So I was given Little Fall of Rain. It was pretty much everything that Eponine sings, but in my first audition, they just wanted to hear the banger. They just wanted to hear On My Own. So I went in, I sang. It was very much a stand on your mark, say your name, who are you represented by, we want to hear On My Own, go ahead and sing it. Thank you so much for coming, we'll be in touch. It was like in and out. They must have seen so many people that day, not just for Eponine, but for all of the parts that they were looking to recast at that point. My next audition was in the same place, so all the people that had been there prior were there again, but there was just a couple more people on the panel this time, and they wanted to hear On My Own and then The Attack on Rue Plumet. And they wanted to hear again, more belty stuff. And it's kind of, at that point, it's like just a check. It's just to make sure that you can sing those notes and that they're comfortable and that you singing them 8 times a week isn't going to absolutely destroy you. So I was told then and there in the room that I would be invited to a workshop the following week on a Wednesday, and then the finals were on the Friday. So it was Chris Key, the resident director, and he was like, we'd love to see you next week for a workshop before the finals. The workshop is basically to get you ready to be seen by Cameron Mackintosh. So in my head, I'm like, so that means I'm going to be at the final then. Oh my God, I've made it down to like the last few people for my dream role. Hopes start like rising, and I'm like, no, 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 we're not doing this yet. So my workshop was on the stage of the Queen's Theatre. Now with every round I went through, I was just kind of saying in my head, you've got an audition for Eponine, and if you don't get any further, you got to audition for Eponine, and you can just try again next year. Then I got to the next round, and it's like, oh my God, I just got to sing in front of the musical director for Les Mis. If I don't get any further, that's really cool, and I can always say that I've done that. Oh my God, okay, now I'm at a workshop, and if I don't get any further, I can say that I sang on the stage of the Queen's Theatre. And then, of course, the workshop was getting me ready for the final, which was on the Friday of that week, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly. But in the workshop, I met Rob Houchen, because Eponine, Marius, and Cosette are kind of trioed up, and they make you go in and sing the trio together, which is at the end of A Heart Full of Love, where Eponine joins in their duet and it becomes a little trio, and they're singing about how in love they are and she's singing about how much she loves him, and oh my God, I'm not loved. This is becoming so much more than an overview, but I'm just gonna go with it. So yeah, I did my final, and the final was about 7 hours long. So I was called at 11:45. Everyone went in for a 15-minute slot before Cameron Mackintosh got there. Just to sing through the material, to make sure that you know it, to make sure that you are prepared to be in front of Cameron Mackintosh. And then there was a delay for about 3 hours, and no one started going in for their actual audition until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then the process just takes a long time. They actually spent a lot of time with us in those rooms and those finals, going through material, asking to hear stuff again. I sang On My Own twice in my audition, and then I came out, and then I waited for a while, and then they asked me to go in with Rob Houchen and someone else for Cosette. There were a few people who were auditioning for Eponine and then were asked to sing Fantine material. It's quite the process, but I didn't leave until about 6:30 that night, having got there for about 11:30 because my slot was at 11:45. It took about 2 weeks to find out that I had got the role. But I'm gonna stop rambling about the process now and tell you about actually being in the show. So I had dreamed, since I was a kid, I played young Eponine when I was 7, and ever since then, Les Mis was the show that I loved above all other shows, still do. It's my favourite show in the world, and Eponine was just the part that I loved the most. On My Own was such a classic song. It was like one of the first musical theatre songs that I'd ever learnt. I just lusted after the part of Eponine so much. It was like stepping into the dream I had always dreamed, not to sound too much like Fontaine there. And nothing excited me more than being there. Like, I felt like Les Mis' biggest fangirl had slipped through the net and was suddenly part of the show. So I was like, oh my god, it's the barricades. Oh my god, there's like all of these actors' signatures on the back of the set, people that I came to watch in the show. This is so exciting. Oh my god, that's how they do the wig changes in Lovely Ladies. Oh my god, I get to be part of Lovely Ladies. Just, it was literally like they'd let a fangirl loose backstage and on stage. But with the role of Eponine and just it was my first job, and with that comes a lot of learning. And also, I was 20. I was 20 years old, and sometimes I forget that, because at the time I felt like a grown-up. You know, I'm an adult now and I have like a grown-up job now, and not only is this a grown-up job, this is the job that I've always dreamed of having, and I know exactly what I'm doing. And now I'm nearing 30 and I look back and I'm like, I was a child. Who allowed me to have that much responsibility? I was a kid who had no idea what they were doing. Not just within the realms of being in a West End show, but just within the realms of being a human. And I was one of the youngest in the cast as well. There were 3 of us that were 20, and I felt like in my first year I was just trying to keep up with everyone. I was trying to keep up with the more mature people in the cast, and by more mature I mean 23, 24. You know, ages that I still look back at now going, you were a child, Carrie, when you were 23 and 24. But when I was 20, I was like, oh my god, they're like 24, they're 25, they know exactly what they're doing, I need to like learn from them. And I also had this extra layer of wanting to prove myself, because I hadn't been to drama school, and I felt like I needed to like up my game and really prove my worth and my place as part of this company. Now that I look back, no one gave a shit. I've had conversations with people who were in that first cast who were like, you got the part, so we kind of trust the opinions of Cameron Mackintosh and the team that have been casting that show for long enough, so just the fact that you were in the room on day 1 of rehearsals was enough proof for us that you belonged there. But in my head I was like, oh my god, I need to make sure that they know that I'm capable of this. But there was so much that I learned on the job that there were people who were fresh out of drama school, it was their first job as well, that they were also learning, which I thought was really interesting, because it's just stuff that you would not know unless you were doing the job. So everyone who was new to doing a show, which was quite a few of us, were all sort of learning how to build up the stamina to do 8 shows a week, and how our bodies and our voices were coping with doing 8 shows a week. And especially when you're new to a job, and for me personally as well, because like I said, I felt like I needed to prove myself, I was giving my performances as Eponine like 800% every night. And so by the time I got to a Saturday night, I was wrecked. Physically, emotionally, mentally, vocally, I was wrecked. So I learnt very quickly that I need to like pull it back a little bit and figure out how to pace myself over an 8-show week so that I didn't feel like I'd been sat on by an elephant by my day off. But then there was also other stuff that I was learning that other people were learning around me, because you just wouldn't be taught those things at drama school, like tipping your dresser. This is a theatre tradition, an etiquette. I don't really know what it's called. At the end of every week, you give your dresser a tip. And this isn't usually for the things that's in their job description, but more often than not, dressers do way more than that. And I say more often than not, I've never come across a dresser who hasn't gone above and beyond for the people that they dress. But tipping your dresser is something that I never would have known if someone hadn't have told me when I was at Les Mis. The other thing about Les Mis when I was there was that outside of the show, my YouTube channel was growing pretty quickly. The crossover between YouTube and theatre was becoming bigger and bigger. Like, there was a much larger percentage of my YouTube audience who were now coming to see the show and turning up at Stage Door. And so Stage Door just got more and more wild as time went on. That was a long show-verview. But overall, I felt like I was growing up in my dream job. I was 20 to 23 when I was playing Eponine, and they are very, in my opinion, formative years. Like, your early 20s is when you do your most growing up, I think. Not even your most growing up, your most learning. That's when I made my most mistakes. That's when I learnt my most valuable lessons in life. And I did that all to the backdrop of being in the longest running West End show in the world. When I look back at that time, all I think of is just fond memories and how much fun I had and all of the wonderful people that I got to meet and got to work with, and how sad I was when I left. I did my first year and I was like, I am not ready to go, and they asked me to stay, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna stay for another year. I got to the end of my second year and I was like, right, okay, I feel ready to go now. And then they said, yeah, but next year's the 30th anniversary, and if you stay for the 30th, we'll put you on tube posters. But they agreed, for me and Rob Houchin, who was Marius at the time, they were like, you don't have to stay for another full year, you just need to stay for the 30th and just a little bit past the 30th. So we left on February the 15th, I think, of 2016. And that is my show review of Les Mis.